Hello and welcome back. This is the part of Bristol News where each night you get a full and probing interview with each of the 13 candidates who are looking for your vote for Bristol Mayor on the 5th of May. Who could call it? Well, you'll have a better idea as I dissect the policies and the personalities of the runners and riders. You can join in. The details of how to get in touch with your questions and your comments on screen now. Tonight, perhaps, one of the hardest candidates really to get a handle on. Former porn star, a homeless, alcoholic and drug addict at 18, who rose to advise the government on mental health. But is he mayoral material? Well, let's ask and welcome John Langley.
Hello, thank you very much.
Thanks for coming on the programme,
right,
John.
Thank you for inviting me.
John Langley or Johnny Rockhard, porn king, which is actually standing for Mayor of Bristol?
John Langley. And I've never been a porn king.
You've worked in the industry for 30 years, John.
Yeah,
I mean, let's not quibble over king. Let's not quibble over you.
You've
used a few monikers yourself in the past, I'm quite sure. But you've worked in that industry for a long time. Yeah. You've got a website that is still up and running. You're still involved in it. Really, is that the background though for somebody who wants to be leading a major city?
I don't know. Is it? I mean, that is the question, isn't it? Really. It is, because I think I have very, very, very different life experiences to all of the other candidates. Okay, I accept not the work that I've been doing, but when you look back over my history to where I am now, there's a wealth of life experience of dealing with different people on all walks of life. I mean, you know, hey, I walked into a massage parlour the other day on my campaign. I walked into a sex shop the other day on my campaign, because these are people who also have issues, and because it's sex trade, it's very often sort of hidden under, no one wants to know.
But it's not the sort of issues that the vast majority of the people,
the
vast majority of people in Bristol will be looking
Yes,
for.
I agree with you, but what I'm saying is different issues for different people, and you have to treat everyone the same.
So you're standing on a single issue, are you?
Yes.
You are?
Yeah, and that's democracy for Bristol.
Let's look at another part of your background, because with the kind of background that we're describing, with the pornography that you've been involved in, there have always been salacious headlines as well. Castle Park.
Yeah.
Last year, you were in UKIP, you were the vice chair, you were suspended from the party. You carried out an intimate act, didn't you, which you filmed and put on the internet. And this was in Castle Park, one of the main parks in the middle of Bristol.
Yes.
Is that what you'd expect a future mayor to be doing?
Because that was the job I was doing at that time. So yes, I fully expect me to carry on doing the work that I'm doing.
But you said that it wasn't criminal. That was your defence at the time. Does that make it right?
Yes. For millions of people out there who watch that kind of material, absolutely.
So for the people out there who watch that kind of material, it wasn't a criminal act because nobody reported it. Presumably nobody saw it at the time. But if I'd walked past with my 10-year-old son or daughter and saw that happening, what would you make of that?
But the point being...
Does that make it right?
Hang on. The point being you wouldn't have done, because I've been in this industry a long, long time. I know all the health and safety issues. I know all the problem areas.
You're in a public park.
Hang on. Give me a sec and I'll answer.
Go on.
Because I make sure that I picked at that particular point a vantage point where I could see all the way around me and any likelihood of anyone coming. And that's one of the, if you like, one of the tricks of the game, is to make sure that you're not in a vulnerable position in a public place that can be reported.
You also made another film, a similar film set on the campus of a university in Bristol, didn't you? Yeah. And the premise being that a man walks around and asks girls, students presumably, and these were real students, weren't they?
No, this is a fake. You know, this is smoke and mirrors. This is fake.
I'm asking you. I'm asking you that you went around. This is what the film depicted.
It depicted
on the campus of the university. If they want a bit of fun and make a bit of money.
Yes, but it's like TV. It's smoke and mirrors. It's not reality.
Yeah.
You know, we're there to make a role, and that's exactly what we did.
Why don't you do it in a studio? Why do you do it on the campus of a university?
Hang on. Let me answer. What it did was to highlight the difficulties of students at that time trying to get through their education, holding down 3 jobs a day, and trying to do their studies. It was a difficult period. We highlighted the problems of student poverty.
So the pornography side of it is actually educational? Is that what you're saying?
Well, of course it is to some people.
You did it for public service?
Yeah, absolutely. Because there are people out there who buy into that scenario.
The other thing, and I just want to get your background, we'll come on to the policies, we'll come on to the positive side.
Yeah.
You may say this is the positive side, but the other thing is that you've got a conviction, haven't you, that goes back about 18 years, which is for an assault on a child of 4 years old.
I was extremely ill at that time under mental health services. The long and the short of it is that we were evicted from the house that we were in. We were put into a temporary house. The children at the time were very unsettled. My partner was very unsettled. I had mental health problems. My son, who was 18 months old, was upstairs making a fuss. He couldn't get into his bedroom. I tried the door, it didn't work. I was worried for him. I kicked the door open. In doing so, another child on the other side of the door went back onto the bed. Yeah. I held him down to say, come on, what are you doing? What are you doing? You can't do things. You know, Jordan wants to get into his room. Holding him like that, what I didn't realise is that I could have restricted the blood flow to his brain. And that's how I got convicted. But it's no longer on my sheet.
It's not, and it was before the register, I think, wasn't it?
Yes.
What came into being, but you were on the Schedule 1 offenders list. I think it's fair.
Well, there was never a Schedule 1 offenders list, to be fair.
This stuff is in the public domain, and this is the background to the man. I mean, you've said that you've had your problems. You had mental health problems as a youngster. You had a terrible childhood, didn't you? In fact, you tried to commit suicide at the age of 10 and 11.
That's right.
Out of all this came some positives, because you then became an advisor, didn't you, for mental health with the government? Yeah,
I decided that I needed to turn things around, and in order to help myself, I had to help other people in a joint way. So we all enabled and empowered one another, and so through that, then I became involved in, the advocacy side in a greater sense. Although I was never an advocate, I have to point out.
You've been diagnosed with 3 kinds of personality disorder.
Yeah.
You still got problems, depression and that sort of thing, but. You've also been in a couple of political parties. You've been in the Lib Dems. You've been in. We've mentioned, of course, UKIP. But are you a stayer? Are you somebody who can devote and stay, or do you move around? Do you stay for a few months, a year, and then go on to something else?
That's a good question.
There is no consistency in this, is there?
That is a really good question. Look at the 2 previous experiences with those parties as the training ground for where I am now, where I'm happiest as an independent. I'm not a party puppet. I don't have someone pulling my strings. I don't have diktats coming down from a central office. I'm my own person, but I'm there for the people, not for a central party office anymore.
And what's this person going to do, this independent? I've looked through your, we could talk housing. You agree with the prefabs almost, don't you? The same as we were talking about last night with Stoney Garnet. You want to get rid of the arena. You want to shelve that idea, don't you?
I think that's going to be a huge financial millstone around the people's neck of Bristol, which is going to be there for years. They'll be paying it off for years.
Not a popular decision, is it? Certainly among the other politicians and everybody else involved.
I'm not here to make popular decisions. I'm here to make sensible decisions.
Isn't it going to bring millions of pounds of investment into this city?
We could put a roof on Ashton Gate Stadium for cheaper than that. It's used to the volume of people that go to Ashton Vale Stadium. You know,
Ashton Gate.
Yeah, Ashton Gate, I beg your pardon, you're absolutely right. You know, the arena, well, that's where we should be having housing. We need housing. If the whole traffic scenario had been thought out before plans for the arena, we wouldn't be in the mess we're in now about the traffic situation.
The traffic situation as well. You've got a lot to say about that, haven't you? You know, starting with Temple Meads, which you want to rename as Brunel, don't you? You want
Brunel Station,
you want to transport Tsar. How much will that cost? How much will that cost to bring somebody in for that position to look after all the transport in Bristol?
It's a bit early to say that at the moment.
You've got it as a policy here.
Hang on, the idea is there. In a democratic Bristol, we need to let the people decide whether it fits the bill or not. That's the whole part of democracy.
But your idea is a transport commission.
I would love to have a transport. Look,
when you put it to the people, John, how much would it cost?
80,000 a year, probably. Maybe, I don't know. 60,000, 100,000.
So more officers on 80, 100,000 pounds a year, 60,000
we have them on 100,000 pound a year already, but they're not very good at doing their job. What we need to do, look, I can't sit here and talk about traffic to you. The other candidates can't, because we're amateurs at it. Let's get a professional in from another city who knows about traffic, who's an expert in it. We're amateurs at the game.
Or a mayoral candidate, perhaps, who has got very strong ideas on how these things could work and perhaps is costing them out.
Yes, indeed. And I'm a very strong mayoral candidate, and I'm going to get somebody who's going to do the job. End of.
£1,000 fine and enforcement officers for dog poo?
Yes.
£1,000 fine for dog poo?
I don't think I ever said £1,000.
That's what you were suggesting. They could go to a magistrate's court if they don't pay the original fine.
Right. If they are serial offenders, then yes, it will be that kind of money.
So
because it costs a fortune
to go back
clear
where we
their
started
their
then,
muck
John.
up.
To go back where we started, £1,000 fine for dog poo, but you can have an intimate sexual act in a park, and that's okay. Does the morality or the ethics of that, is it a little bit hypocritical?
No, not at all. Because I can compartmentalise my work in that industry and what I would be doing for mayor, and the two things are entirely separate.
You've said you think that you're going to be a two-horse race, didn't you? It's not George Ferguson and Marvin Rees. It's going to be you and and who else?
Marvin Rees.
Marvin Rees.
Yeah,
you seriously think you can give this a go?
I'd love to give it a go. I think it's going to be a great challenge.
You're 200 to 1.
So what? Do you know there are people out there who've got loads of money on me, and they're going to get thousands if I win,
John,
including myself.
We're out of time. Good luck. Thank you very much indeed. Just one of the 13 people putting themselves forward then, John Langley, for Mayor of Bristol. You can see the rest on the screen now. So there we are. That's who's standing. I'm going to be back tomorrow with one of the big two, really, if we go by the bookies anyway, and that is Marvin Rees. He's going to be in the chair with me tomorrow at the same time. So from all of us here, until then, bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.